Now, it is a little bit harder for me in this format. Those of you that know me and have been in any of my classes or I've been in your clinic, I love people. I like being around people. I like the feedback. This is a little different format because I can't see your faces. I can't hear you. I do see when you're typing at me. Sometimes I pay attention to that. Sometimes I miss it. If you have any questions, if you would put them into the chat, and you can add bells and whistles or hand signals or anything like that to get my attention. I'll try to pause every once in a while just so that if there is a question that you can get that out. I do need to make a disclaimer. Any of the information that is provided today is not in any ways trying to treat anybody or show anybody how to do anything outside of your stations or your clinic's protocols. And then anybody that does vision therapy needs to be under the license of a registered optometrist. All right. So give us one moment here.
All right. Thanks.
So thankfully, my friend Dustin with the fire department, he's here. He just handled that call for me. So he's just marking it down. So as we begin, this is going to be, again, back to our basics on vision therapy. And the whole point of this is for new therapists is how to begin to build your therapy, how to begin to work with your patients. For older therapists or therapists that have been doing this a while, it's just to remind us why we have these basics, why we're doing these things, okay? So in our slideshow, we'll find, this is me. I'm James. I'm a COVT with COVD. I'm also a member of the Emergent team. I've been a vision therapist now for about 10 years, and I also mentor for the College of Visual Development. I love my job. I love what I do. I love the impact that it makes into people's lives. And I also like the fact that we have an endless amount of information that we can explore and begin to learn together about. So I want to start out with understanding luster, okay? Understanding why we use red and green and what this does. So we have to begin with the visual pathways. So we all know you have a right eye, you have a left eye. So we have two cameras. I like to kind of picture them like that, okay? So two separate cameras. So as light comes in, time and time again, we're told that the eyes don't see. The eyes are only the gatherers of the light. They gather in the light. That light is then processed and sent into the brain, and then the brain sees, okay? So if you look at your little chart here, it kind of gives you an idea of understanding where does the eye see, okay? So if the back of the eye, as Dr. Winters has explained it on previous videos, or if you've gone through our classes, it's kind of like a satellite dish, okay? So that roundness on the back, you have a temporal side, okay, which is on the outside of our eyes, and then we have a nasal side. So that satellite dish, if this is the nasal side of my OD, my right eye, it's actually seen out here, okay? This side is catching light from the opposite side, and it's seen inside that nasal area. Opposite on here, temporal, is crossing over and seeing out here, and this part is seeing the nasal. So you can see in that picture all that interaction or that overlap of the system. It's really amazing the way that is given to us, that periphery and that central vision, that the eyes are able to capture all that light, and then they process it back through the optic nerve. Now, as it comes through that optic nerve, you can see that there on the chart, it comes to a point called the optic chiasm, okay? This is the little switchboard. Very important, okay? Temporal on this side does not go through the optic chiasm. It wraps around and comes over here to the left side of the brain. On the left side, it wraps around and comes to the right side of the brain. So it's already there. But those nasal points come through and then cross over. That way, all the information that is gathered from this right eye is processed over here to the left side, and all that's gathered here on the left side is processed over to the right. Now, it sounds confusing, but if we think about it, a lot of times we understand how the right side and left side work, and they work opposite sides of the body, okay? So that optic chiasm is very important. And when I'm kind of talking to my therapy patients or talking to students, especially as we're going to be dealing with today, dealing with suppression, dealing with the ability to get both eyes working together, is I try to get them to picture that there is a little switchboard operator who's sitting into that little seat, and he is the optic chiasm coordinator. And as information comes through, he is flipping switches to allow or not allow that information to come through. If that information is not coming through, that means that they are suppressing, okay? And we're going to cover a little bit more of that. So very important to understand these eyes are just cameras. They're grasping the light, they're gathering the information, they're receiving all the stimulus, the input, and then they're sending it on to be processed within the brain. So very important that as we go forward, we understand that we're not just dealing with the eye, we're really dealing with the brain. The brain's ability to take the information that's given in and then be able to do something with it. Now, why is this important? If we look on this picture, you'll see that there is a dorsal stream. That is the stream that goes up over the top into that cerebral cortex. And then there's a ventricle stream, okay, or ventral stream. That's that lower. And that vision for action, that dorsal, that's our periphery, okay? That's our Magnum Cellular system. That's knowing that something is in my periphery. I'm looking at you or looking at the camera, but I can see different things over to the side. And also I can see if a ball was to come flying out towards me, it is preparing me vision for action. I can move out of the way because my periphery is seeing that. That ventral stream, okay, that's vision for perception. Now, there's a lot of images you can Google. I looked at a lot of different ones. They have pictures that they will show you how it kind of puts those into certain categories. Up here, we have the where pathway, where things are in space, where they're moving to, all these different things that help me triangulate where objects are in relationship to myself, okay? That's that action pathway. But that ventral, okay, that is the what pathway, the parvo, okay? It's going to give me clarity, okay? So it's got its roots. It's going to help me to decide details and color and all those different things. Accommodation works through that parvo pathway, okay? So it's very important that we understand as we're going forward, we're dealing with two systems. One, magno, gross peripheral, the where, okay? Parvo, the central, the dedicated to the what, okay? Now, as we enter into all things luster, we're going to be dealing more with the where than with the what. We're going to be dealing more with that parvo cellular. Now, here is just a chart. You can take a look at it. But the magnocellular, its spatial vision, where things are oriented, is primarily in that periphery. It's oriented to relation to space and time, great at movement detection. So any of you do sports vision therapy? I think some of you guys out there. For years, coaches, okay? Coaches said, keep your eye on the ball, focus, get your eye on the ball, look at the ball, look at the ball. Well, actually what they're doing, it could be counterproductive because what they need to be saying is open your periphery, understand where it is in space, take in your surroundings, and that's going to help them a lot farther than having a parvo laser-like focus on one single object, okay? Through the magnocellular, we can anticipate change in relation to movement, balanced posture. It's the primary sense in having us to be anticipatory and adaptive nervous systems. It gives us the global awareness of our surroundings. And that global awareness, that's the key point. That's what I want us to get. Because when we go into this, the whole goal is to be getting to have that optic chiasm and have that peripheral pathway and that central pathway communicating both of them to where they need to within the brain. So waking that brain up and defeating the suppression that's causing them to only have part of the information. So take a moment here. If you have questions, you can begin typing those out. The next part is the basics of fusion, okay? So many people ask me, how do you plan your therapy? How do you think of your therapy? And they say, is it monocular and then biocular and then binocular? And time again, I come back to them and say, it's not linear, okay? It's not one, then the other, and then finally the last, okay? We are binocular beings, okay? From the very beginning, we are binocular beings. And so I work binocular from day one. This red, green luster stuff that I'm going to tell you about today is stuff that I start with as soon as I use the name Johnny, but as soon as little Johnny sits down in front of me, we begin this pathway or this journey towards complete binocularity. Doesn't mean that I don't add some monocular, doesn't mean that I don't add some biocular or some MFBF, but I work binocular from day one, okay? So in order to get fusion, again, a little bit of review for most of us, there has to be motor alignment. So if I have camera 1 and camera 2, they have to be able to align together, okay? So we have convergence coming together, divergence coming apart, spreading out to look far, convergence to look close. So there has to be motor alignment to get the eyes to the same place so that they can both pair together. So that's going to be part of it. But the second part is sensory fusion. Now, this is where the brain takes the image from camera 1 and the image from camera 2 and formulates it into its own distinct precept, okay? So it's not just what this eye sees or just what this eye sees. It's a blending of them both, okay? Now, in the perfect time when that happens, that's what gives us the stereopsis because it's not quite perfect. One's from a different perspective, one's from another perspective. So the blending of them too, that's what gives us depth. That's what makes the world pop, all right? And my mother-in-law, I finally got her to take vision therapy. And I remember when she sat down with Dr. Winters was like, well, why are you here? And she said, well, James forced me to. And that's almost exactly right. Because she did not see stereo, okay? She did not see depth. And I remember the day that she called me and she said she was sitting at her dining room table looking out at the apple trees. We're in the middle of apple country. Looking at the apple trees, and she began to see the depth between the trees, began to see the hills as a different depth, and began to see Mount Adams and Mount Rainier as a different depth. And that's what we're talking about when we begin to have that perfect fusion and have that sensory fusion, and we're able to create that stereopsis. Now, there are stages of fusion, okay? The first stage that I'm talking about is kind of this luster. It's just the brain's ability to take what one eye is giving it and what the other eye is giving it and blending them over into one new precept. Now, I did give a handout there. It's a beautiful illustration. It's by a guy, Squinty Eye Josh is his blog that he had. I don't know if he still continues to have it. But in that, you'll see where he has a red square, a yellow square, and then if we were to converge those two, what that square would look like in the middle. And that's that blending of the two colors. And that's what we're basically going to talk about with red-green. We're going to take red and we're going to take green, total different frequencies. Green light can't go through red lens, red light can't go through a green lens. So we have two separate precepts, but we're going to blend them into a brand new picture, okay? That's the first stage. Then you have simultaneous perception. Those of you that are therapists that are new to this, your doctors will be able to show you it, or other therapists will be able to. But I remember the stop sign where you have the word stop and then you have the sign over here. And by crossing your eyes, you can begin to make those overlap, or diverging your eyes, you can make those overlap. And that's called simultaneous perception. You can also use it with disassociated prism so that they can see both things at the same time, but they're not able to fuse those together into a new precept. We also use polar mirror, okay? Polar mirror is an activity that you can use with Polaroid glasses standing in front of the mirror. It gives you one eye and the other eye, and you have simultaneous perception of both. Moves on to flat fusion. Fusion Fred's probably the most familiar. There you have his face, and then part of his face over here, part of his face, and then you create into one face. Second degree fusion, you have kind of like your eccentric circles. They're going to give you a little bit more depth. They should be able to recognize a little bit more silo, a little bit easier. And then finally, we're going to have stage 3 or stereopic fusion, vectograms, VTS4, lots of different things that are going on with that. Okay, but let's go back. Why start with luster? Okay, this is engaging the connectivity between both eyes and then the brain's involvement in fusion. Okay, we want both eyes working. Okay, that's just the way we want it. But we have to recognize that suppression, okay, the fact that one eye is not giving information, is an adaptation. Okay, and sometimes that adaptation is good. Okay, if you have somebody that has atropia, an exotropia or an esotropia, the fact that they're suppressing is a benefit to the brain because now they're not having to deal with that double image, right? So why would we want to work on getting both eyes woken up? Oh, thank you. Thank you for somebody pointing that out. Yep, just click up on the handout button and then you should be able to download it. Okay. Remember that we are still talking about very gross retinal fusion. Okay. I'm not talking about fine detailed macula, fovea, crisp, detailed information. So that is right. I don't want to wake up their central suppression. I only want to deal with their periphery. I only want to begin to get into that brain system of recognizing, oh, I've got an eye here and I've got an eye over here. It sounds kind of generic, but when I'm working with kids, I say, yeah, sometimes your brain forgets that it has a left eye. You know, it's been using that right eye for so long that it doesn't remember that left eye is even there. So we have to remind it, okay? And so that's what we're doing. We're getting it a way that we can kind of go into the back door of the brain and we can begin to put information through that optic chiasm that matches the information that it's getting in its periphery so that it can begin to say, oh, there is a right eye, there is a left eye. But you know what? This says the world is green. This eye says that the world is red. Well, that can't be true. It must be something that's mixed together. And that's when the magic happens, when the brain begins to mix the two colors together to create that new image, okay? It's very peripheral. It's very magno, so it's good for gross fusion. And this is the glue. This is the activity that begins to hold all future fusion activities together because now I'm getting them to use both eyes at the same time, okay? Because it is gross peripheral, it's a less chance to cause diplopia. We are using, if you go back to that slide with all that butterfly effect of where we are on the chart, we got a mask gross over all of it with no detail. So there's nothing that really is going to awake diplopia, okay? So this is a very safe way to start fusion. Tools. So what tools are needed? First of all, red-green glasses, okay? So, of course, this is sponsored by Emergent. So here's our Emergent red-green clip and the Emergent frame. It just snaps on. Now, you will find I have some kids that it is easier for them to have one color over their amblyopic eye than the other, okay? That is fine to start with. But with every patient, I switch it back and forth until they are confident that they can get luster and they can get fusion no matter what color is over the top, okay? So that you're able to make sure that they have that, okay? Now, you're going to need the red-green glasses. Then you're going to need white surfaces or objects, okay? So I'll be showing you, this is the back of the Emergent kit, the board. I have a whiteboard back here. Balloons, I'll show you some balloons. Oh no, she froze my video. All right, Tony, I'm sure that we'll get it to you. If not, I will get it to you after we're done here. One of the things that I'll do, especially with small children, is I will talk to the patient or the parents and I'll say, hey, you're starting vision therapy. We're going to be doing these red-green luster activities. We're going to be using white objects. What I want you to do is you're going to go out and buy them a therapy pal, okay? You're going to go find the fuzziest, whitest teddy bear or lion or tiger or whatever type of animal that they like, but I want it to be white, okay? And then that's going to be their therapy pal that they can play with while they're wearing their red-green glasses. Or if I have even younger ones, like my youngest patient's been 18 months, okay? Going up through, that 18 months to 2.5, 3 years, if they have a blanket that they like, I say, hey, I want you to go out and get them a nap blanket, okay? And I want this blanket to be white, okay? Something that they can have. And so anything white is what's going to be the best background for these luster activities. Now, additional resources that we'll be talking about are tubes, and we'll demonstrate how to use those. You can use toilet paper tubes, or you can take paper towel tubes and cut them in half. The absolute best is if you have one of those automatic paper towel dispensers in your bathrooms and stuff. Those white tubes that come in it, they're solid. They're about that long. They're perfect. I love handing those out. The other thing that you can use for this to help with simultaneous perception is some yellow felt and some red felt, okay? And we'll deal with that in a little bit. That's a little bit different way to work on this luster program. So now let's get to the fun spot. Okay, so these are the activities. I wanted to kind of go through that first part, and now we can kind of look at it. Again, this is not the best setup because you're not here. I wish that I had all of you in a room and we would all role play, and some of you would be wearing glasses and some of you would be doing activities, and then we'd be coaching one another and just having that aspect. But when we begin with red-green, the first thing, of course, is I just give them the glasses, okay? And when they put their set on, one of the things that I ask them to do is after they got their glasses on, okay, and they're looking and they have their red-green glasses on, and I just say, just look around. What do you see, okay? The best advice that I can give you as a therapist is never be in a hurry. It's not the activity, okay? It's the action that the patient themselves does in coming to self-realization of what's happening within their own physiologically, what's going on in their brain, what's going on with their eyes, all those different things. So don't get in too big of a hurry to rush into whatever you set up. So putting the glasses on them, they put on their red-green glasses, and I say, what do you see? Because as they pause and as they go, they may say red, and then they may stop and go green. Nope, red. Nope, green. Well, any guess of what's going on? I'll give you a second. You can answer it in your own mind. You can type it if you want. Okay? They're alternating. Okay? They're seeing with one eye red, then it's going, and then they're seeing one eye green. Okay? So that little guy in the optic chiasm, he's sitting there flipping, whoop, 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 and he doesn't know which one to keep on or which one is the most viable, okay? Whenever I have somebody that's switching back and forth, I'm encouraged because that shows that they are able to use both eyes. If they look at you and say red, 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 meaning that whatever eye that is under that green lens, they're not getting any information, I know that's going to be a little bit harder to work on, okay? So first thing, when they got their red-green glasses on, and I'm not going to put these on because then it's just awkward kind of looking at you. But the first thing that I give them, I'm going to pretend that you out there have your red-green glasses on, is I use this whiteboard, okay? It comes on their kits. If you don't have our kits, then you can, of course, get them if you want. If not, you can use any whiteboard or white paper that you want, white poster board, okay? But what this allows me is as that patient's sitting across from me is I can bring it closer to them. I can move it back. I can add that to where I can try to find out where their centration point is, okay? So those of you that have worked with esotropes may understand that concept. But if you have somebody that has an ESO, okay, they have one eye that's turned in, well, there is a place where this other eye can converge and there is a crossing point, okay? We call that the centration point. But there is a centration point for periphery for everybody, okay? So when I'm working with their periphery, whether they're an esotrope or whether they're an exotrope, because I'm using gross fusion, there's no detailed on this. All I'm doing is red and green, okay? That I can bring this closer and I can move it farther, okay, until I can find a place where they begin to see it blending, okay? That's what we're hoping. So what is luster? Well, red and green together, they should be able to see something different, okay? So the way I put it, and if I had these on, if I covered up, the world is red. If I covered it up, the world is green. But if I take it out, the world just became something different. That's all that I'm looking for right now, different. So sometimes they'll say, well, it's red-ish. So then I'll cover up their green eye and I say, now look at that red. And they say, yes. And then I'll pull it off. I'll say, is it the same red or is it a different red? And they'll go, well, no, it's a different red. It's kind of watermelon-y or whatever. Or is it that green or a different green? And they will either say it's that green, meaning that they're suppressing the other eye, or it's a different green, meaning that they're getting some saturation between two eyes, but maybe not perfect saturation, okay? So it's very important that you let them communicate what they're seeing. Now, if they just say, I see orange, boom, that quick, that's pretty cool. That's great. That means they're getting pretty good luster. Orange, sparkly orange is probably the number one color that we see. If they have perfect saturation, and maybe you have a room that has really good light, they may even say, it's white. I see it as white. That means they're doing really good. They've got it good. But they may have other colors, okay? I've heard colors from teals to purples to grayish colors and all these different things. Most times when it's an off color, like a brownish color, a grayish color, a tealish color, a lot of times I end up finding out that they have like anomalous correspondence and they're not really fusing macula to macula. They're not getting really good saturation. So I can work on that. I'm getting both eyes communicating, and now we'll work on getting them to communicate fovea to fovea. But we're right now just looking for any type of color saturation between the two eyes. Now, if I do this and they say, I only see one color, okay? I only see red, or I only see green, okay? Then I go through our anti-suppression protocols. And I know that I've talked about these at previous webinars, and I've done this at different places. But if you just quickly review things that we want them to do, we want them to open their periphery, okay? So audible snaps, okay? So as I'm sitting there and I'm holding this and they're over there, I'm snapping my hand saying, hey, does that help? Can you open your periphery? Can you tell me different things that you see in the room around you? Okay, getting them to open their periphery. If that doesn't work, I can shake this a little bit, okay? Just adding that dynamic, because remember, what system are we working with? The magno, the peripheral. Which one is that? Action, okay? So we're stimulating that action, that movement, okay, to see if that helps them to see anything different. The other thing you can add, and we're going to go through it a little bit more, is their own body movement. So having them stamp their feet or kind of move their head back and forth just a little bit to stimulate that vestibular system, okay? That can help you. If they continue to suppress, we'll just continue to work with that suppression while we're doing this. Sometimes you'll get what's called split field, okay, where they'll see red on one side and green on the other side, okay? So if that's the case, I've already worked in their centration point. I'm going to back up and look at the wall here for a second. So I think everybody can still see me. So let's say that they see red over here and green over here, okay? That's really hard to see, but I apologize about that. But green over here, red over here, okay? This is where I say, okay, what I want you to do, they still have their red-green glasses on, is I want to take your right hand and your left hand, and I want you to put one in the red and one in the green, okay? So if I was facing you, they put one hand in the red, They put one hand in the green, so the chalkboard, okay? And then I have them start to do that centric motion, okay? So these circles, what I'm doing is I'm bringing them to their midline and away from their midline, right? I'm bringing to their midline and away from their midline. So I'm helping them to bring to that center point their vision, their whole being, and we're adding that bilateral integration. And then I'll say, okay, now just finger paint, and you can make it fun. Say, I want you to grab some of that green and I want you to grab some of that red and I want you to mix it all together. And then I'll ask them, what color are you now seeing? And it is amazing how just that sometimes, boom, done. They've got it. They can mix those two colors together because if you think about it in their concept, they know, oh yeah, I can mix paint together. They're telling themselves, oh, I can mix these light together. And now my brain can recognize that mixture. Times I've had them say, well, now I see red here and green here, and it's all kind of mixed up. We just continue with those centric motions, okay, those centric circles, sometimes going together, sometimes going out, sometimes going one way or the other way, ipsilaterally or contralaterally. Either way, trying to get them to really engage that vestibular system or that bilateral integration system, okay? If they're still having problems with that, you can add where they lift one leg, the opposite leg of what hand that they're using, okay? So now we're really getting both parts of their body moving together in space as they're trying to mix these two colors, okay? So very important. Now, after I've done this, one of the great ways that kids love to do these is with a balloon. So I just get a white balloon. Now, this balloon here, it's a little bit too shiny, okay? I really like the ones that are just a flat white, okay? Just a flat party white balloon, okay? When you blow it up, then you give it to the children, okay? And they have their red, green glasses on. And then we just work at them keeping it in space, okay? So they just sit there and bounce it as much as they want. We play balloon volleyball. I can then take it and I can hold it close to their face or I can hold it away so I can work that centration point. I can shake it to give dynamic, okay? I can take it from just normal primary gaze to side gazes, okay? Some of your patients, if they do have atropia, they may be able to get it in a certain side gaze better than they can in primary gaze. So again, wherever they're at, start there. So if I have a patient that they can start it over in this gaze, that's where I'm going to begin, okay? But then over the course of therapy, I'm going to work it until now I've got them in primary gaze, and now I've got them in the opposite gaze, and now I've got them up here, and now I've got them in lower gaze. So you're working all gazes, okay, while they're doing it, okay? The other good thing about the balloon, check with the parents, especially if they have younger siblings, but it's a great thing to send home to them, okay? I send home white balloons, they blow them up, they play balloon volleyball, wear their red, green glasses. It's an activity that they enjoy doing, they don't fight it, and then they come back. I also just say, hey, when you get home this week, here's your activities, okay? So 4 activities that I want you to do. But I would also like you just to put on your red, green glasses for 10 to 15 minutes a day. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. All that I'm wanting is them to wear the red, green glasses so that they, just in their normal day, have more opportunity to come through that back door of the brain and say, well, the world can't be red, the world can't be green, it must be a mixture. So it's just very passive. They're not having to think about it. It's just a way to start incorporating that brain into seeing both colors. So balloon, whiteboard, but sometimes that doesn't work, okay? They're still suppressing or they're still having a hard time making those two mix. So we use what's called tube fusion. So you can take 2 little tubes, I'll hold them up. This is just a paper towel tube that I cut in half. You can use TP tubes, you know, if you want to use those, okay? So when they have their red, green glasses on, remember one of the first things I said that we needed to have for fusion? That was motor alignment, right? They have a hard time getting their eyes both to the same place at the same time. Well, if I take two tubes and put them over their eyes, now I can manipulate those tubes either closer or further apart as needed, okay? So that now I'm controlling the motor alignment part, all right? So by controlling that motor alignment, I can take them, and let's see if I can put it here. They should see one red circle and they should see one green circle, right? Because they're looking through two tubes. But as I put those tubes together, all of a sudden I'm overlapping the red and the green for them, okay? So now they should be able to see either them simultaneously, okay, where they'll say, well, I see red and part of it's green, so they got split filled again, or they're flashing back and forth, part red, part green, so that I have alternating again, or they'll begin to see, oh, now it's blending together. So the tube fusion is really important to help them to be able to get that motor alignment so that I know that the eyes are both focusing or pointing at one spot. And that way I can help control that luster. Okay, so tube fusion. Other activities you can do, you can use your Marston ball, just hanging the Marston ball there, having them touch the Marston ball with the red-green glasses on. Our Marston balls are white, okay? You can also take a white balloon and cut the end of it and put it over the top of that Marston ball, and then you can take a red cancellation marker and you can write on it so that they have some disparity, and you can use that to help create luster. All these different ways, okay? So those are kind of the basic of the luster activities, but luster is something that I use with many activities. How many of you have the SVI, the Sanit Vision Integrator? Anybody out there have that? Okay, I have one yep from Megan. Yes, okay, good. So you can set for white dots, okay, and then put red-green glasses on them, and now you have a luster activity. They have to touch the dots out, but they can only touch them if they make them luster. You can make it to where it spins on the rotator, and they can only touch it if they have luster. That's a way that I do it. The other way is on our SVI, you can put the words, okay, so you have saccadic word saccades. I make the letters white and put a black background, okay? So now they have to have luster on the letters, okay? And why they have luster on the letters, I'll have them on the floor first, later on a balance beam. They start out close. Let's say the word is water. They spell it W-A-T-E-R as they're walking back. Then backwards as they walk forward, R-E-T-A-W. And they have to stop if they lose luster. If one of those, if the word begins to be red or the word begins to be green, they have to stop. They have to maintain luster while they're walking through space, okay? So you can use it on the SVIs. And the other thing, Marston ball, we already talked about that. But anytime that I'm doing an activity that has a whiteboard involved, I can always throw these on. Also with Brock string. It is a great way to put red-green glasses on them, and now that white string, they have a red string and a green string, okay? And to know where that is crossing. So those are different ways that you can incorporate. Modifications, okay? Last slide. We're about there. Thank you for your patience. So anytime that we do any activity, it's not going to go perfect, okay? There's going to be times where what we thought was going to work is not going to work. So ways to modify, and that's why I wanted to come back to this. First of all is dynamic. Anytime that you can shake that target that they're out, that's going to stimulate that Magnum Cellular, that's going to help with this gross peripheral fusion. Bilateral integration, anytime that you can get their body moving, especially both sides of the body crossing the midline, that's going to awaken within the brain, hey, something's going on this side, something's going on this side. I better have all my senses going as much as possible. I need information from both eyes. Then other ways that you can do this is, remember, this is so gross peripheral that we really don't need accommodation for this activity. And in fact, sometimes accommodation can get in the way in this activity. So if I have a patient that they're just split field, split field, split field, even with tube fusion, they're just not getting any saturation of the two colors, I will actually plus them out. Okay. You can talk to your doctor about this, how to do this, what he would recommend. But usually I end up putting about a +6 on both eyes because they can't accommodate. They can't relax that out to make it clear. And my whole purpose is to get them to where they don't try. They just let their accommodative system relax, and all they worry about is red and green, okay, and the blending of those two. So if you look down here at the bottom, I have a little plus lens. We're giving them so much plus that we're taking details out of the equation. All they're going to see is color, blurry color. Blur is fine for this because we just want it to be blurry luster color, okay? Then I use lights. They have, I'm at the fire station here. I don't have it, but they have these little touch lamps that you can take and you can set them up to whatever light frequency or how high of brightness you want. And then just have them look at that light and feel that light and accept the color between red and green and the blending of it. The other thing you can do with the light is I will go into a dark room, turn out all the lights, make sure you have permission and you leave the door just a little bit open if you're going to be by yourself, or you take another therapist in with you. Then sit down, and in that darkness where there's not a lot of other peripheral stimulation, it allows the entire periphery to really focus on that light, that saturation of light. I will even take a balloon, blow a balloon partially up, and then the doctor's scope light that has that little hook on it is perfect to putting in the end of that balloon, and it will make that balloon just glow, okay? And then you can hold it in closer, you can move it onto all the gazes. After they've gotten that, little plastic golf balls, I'll poke a hole in it and put that light in the back, and then I'll use that golf ball as my luster target. So many different ways that you can use those lights, use all those different things to help create luster. So basically, we're about out of time. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast, but I love working luster. I love working this activity. It's something that you can start from day one, and you can keep bloating it until where you know throughout the course of history that they're not suffering suppression. And this will be the groundwork. This will be the basis on which you begin to base all other fusional activities on. There's no reason to go into fusion cards, vectograms, all those different things if they can't get red-green luster. Are there any questions? All right. Please feel free to let me know. I just shared a poll with you. If you'll let me know the feedback if this information was helpful, we're trying to make it as much information that we can give you that would be benefit for you. Next month is April, okay? That is COVID month, so we will not be doing a webinar in the month of April. What we do encourage is, as much as possible, attend any of the classes that you can online with COVID, and then we will be back in May. All right? I'll open it up if there's any other questions real quick. All right, here we go. Any suggestion for patients who seem to have a difficulty with red due to neuroenergy or mental health issues? That is a tough one because it is true, especially some people that have TBIs. The red lens can be a little bit of a factor for them. That you're just going to have to communicate with your doctor, okay, and just work with them a little bit. That one, I told you a little bit, we didn't have time to go with the red felt and the yellow felt. You can actually set it up in a corner with a mirror, and then you can do simultaneous perception over the top, and then they can get some saturation between the red and the yellow that way without putting a lens over their eye. Do I still do luster training with patients with ARC? Yes. And the reason is because as I get fusion, okay, once I get fusion, gross peripheral fusion, I can now begin to use fusion to correct any anomalous correspondence. Karen, is there write-ups for some of those activities that you went over? So yes and no. I do have some, but they're not perfected. My goal is to start to begin to rewrite some of our training book so that it will be in written form. But unfortunately, I don't at this time. There are some luster activities that are a part of our training videos online, but I don't have anything that's a handout. But if you do have questions later on, you're welcome to email me, or just you can go on to our website and you can go to my Calendly link, and you can even set a private time where you just set it up that we can talk about it, and I can help you with that. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions. I do appreciate it. I hope that you have a blessed day, and keep doing vision therapy. It is a wonderful, wonderful job that you're all doing. Thank you so much.